All right. Well, we might still have a couple joining us. We'll see. I will keep my eye on the door, so to speak. But I want to go ahead and get started for this evening. And first of all, thank you all for being here. While this course is largely sort of built on a more of an asynchronous, self-guided sort of model, um, one of the weaknesses of online learning, which is what this class is about. So part of this is me just trying to model good behavior, but part of the difficulty with an online learning model is just making connections with other people. If you're sitting in a classroom together, you obviously get to know those people. You have just social interactions in the classroom. Things come up, sort of off the cuff. So I like to have these moments every few weeks or so for us to just get together and have some time to get into a particular topic or concept a little deeper, and to be able to do that by interacting with each other and having actual live conversations. So that's what these roundtable discussion evenings are about. There's really, I'll go over it briefly, but there's really nothing in the way of new work for this week. There's no additional discussion forums or assignments or anything like that. So on the homework front, really at this point, the coming week is just about if you need any time to get caught up with the work that we've done so far in the class. That includes the instructional design, the two instructional design pieces for your Google Classroom lesson project. It also includes phase one for the technology integration plans, which is due a week from tonight on the 14th. Valentine's Day. So, just use this week to take a look back, make sure you've got everything completed and everything up to date. And then next week, we'll be moving ahead both on the technology integration plan front and on the lesson plan front. We'll be moving forward with those. And then I think it's 3 or 4 weeks from now that we will have the next of these roundtable discussion nights. So before I go any further, and before we get into anything else, I do want to, as I always like to do, give anyone an opportunity. If you have questions or concerns about anything so far in the course, I'm more than happy to address those now. Or you can, of course, always follow up with me separately if you would like to do that. But is there anything anyone would like to bring up for the good of the order at this point?
I just have a quick question about the technology integration plan due next week.
Yes.
So I get like the part about finding like different plans and reviewing them, but I'm just a little confused about like the part of picking a topic for our own. Like, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the project is you're going to build a technology integration plan. So there has to be some technology thing that you are wanting to bring into a classroom or support in a classroom. So that's just about sort of trying to decide what that is. And a couple of guidelines along those lines. In terms of scope, and I think I went over this before, but forgive me if I didn't. Most of the technology plans that you've probably found and are looking at are district-wide technology plans. They're an umbrella for an entire district, K-12, with maybe thousands of students and so on. What we're looking for in this class is at a much, 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 much smaller scale. So it would be some piece of technology that would be basically at your classroom level, maybe at your department level, if maybe you're in a small department or you have something that you can think of that would be a really good fit. So it can be hardware that you are looking to add into a classroom setting. I've had a whole range of people do projects along those lines. It could be software based, so some new piece of software or an app or something like that that you think would be useful in the classroom. It can also, though, be on the training side, which any of you that have experienced the situation of having a new technology thrown into your classroom and not being told how to actually use it. So you could actually create a technology integration plan where it's not so much about choosing a technology to bring into the classroom, but more, we already have this technology in the classroom, but nobody ever took the time to teach us how to use it. So you'd be developing like a training plan for how to get people up to speed on using that technology. So, I don't want anyone to drive themselves nuts by taking on something that's too broad a scope. I did have one student one year, and this was largely just because of the position they were in. They were kind of in a position to integrate a new technology sort of school wide. And so they took that on as their project. But that's kind of an unusual situation. And that student knew going into it that they were taking on a bigger topic than typically was the case. Yeah, so does that help you out?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And the ideas will probably evolve too as you start to get into the project. But just at this point, going into it, kind of having at least a rough idea of some technology focus that you can develop a plan around for integration. All right, great question. Anything else at this point? All right. Well, let's get into the conversation for tonight. I will confess to all of you that probably as recently as maybe a week and a half ago, the topic that we were going to engage with tonight was something completely different. Um, but just in my day to day life, as I was listening to news and looking at news articles and postings in various educational sites and all that, I all of a sudden saw all of these articles pop up related to this platform called ChatGPT, which on the surface of it and by the name of it maybe doesn't sound like it's something that would maybe have a real impact in the educational world. But the reason I was hearing these articles, the thing that had just happened, was that ChatGPT had actually taken graduate level exams. I think it was at a business school and at like two law schools or something like that. So these were online exams for graduate level courses, and they had essentially, blind entered ChatGPT into the mix and had it complete the exam as if it was a student. The people scoring the exams did not know that this was a AI that was taking the exam. They just scored it along with all the rest of the students, and the results were not stellar, but I think it got like a B and a B plus on a couple of them, maybe a B minus on one of the law ones or something like that. But it did well enough that it passed. If it had been a student, it would have passed those exams. But it was completely artificial intelligence. So when I heard that, it immediately to me said, okay, this probably already is having some kind of an impact on instruction. And in particular, in thinking about this class, in the world of online instruction, where students are essentially learning in an unmonitored environment, I could see where ChatGPT could kind of poke its head into things and maybe have an impact on what was going on. And I've actually, in the past week or so, sort of brought it up casually in school with my students who are high school age students, and have already been told of several situations where students have used it to do various things related to the schoolwork that they are doing. So it's kind of already there and kind of maybe is sort of snuck in under the radar. But it occurred to me that, again, because this class is about online learning and about learning through technology, that we kind of owe it to know what is going on currently and what is currently sort of challenging that environment. Not that this doesn't also challenge the in-person classroom environment too, but I think the online or the distance learning model could potentially see a lot more impact because of something like this. So the idea tonight is, I know we're a relatively large class. All 12 of us are here, which is awesome. So I want to make sure that we can be in situations where everybody can be kind of actively contributing, instead of me just calling on hands that are going up. So we are going to go into smaller groups and have the core of these discussions in some breakout rooms. And I will circulate through the rooms and kind of check in on what's going on. And then we'll come back together and debrief and maybe get a couple of the key ideas that came up in each of the groups, and kind of share those out and see what we think. And then I have kind of a very meta way to cap off the evening, once we get through the discussions. So let me do this. I'm going to move over to this so that, um, there we go. So that we can all see it. So the overview for this week, like I said, there's really not any new work for this week. So all the things down here in work due next class, these are all just repeats of stuff from the first few weeks of class, just to make sure you're kind of up to date on everything. But what I would like to do is I'm going to go over here, and I figured the best way to do this, because unfortunately, and I did look into this, WebEx doesn't have any way to record breakout rooms. Because ideally, I would love to be able to sort of capture the discussions in each room and have a way for people to kind of see what the discussions were. That's just not something that's built into WebEx. Um, I would not be opposed if somebody in one of the breakout groups had the ability to sort of quickly do a screen capture video of the chat and you could forward that to me. That would be great, but it's not required. But at the very least, what I wanted to do is have a place where each group could at least take some notes down. So we're going to use a wiki in Blackboard. It's the roundtable #1 chat GPT activity. And within that, there is a sub page for three different groups. I think with 12 of us, we'll break into 3 groups. And in each one of those, there's just sort of a series of guiding questions to kind of help move the conversation along and give you a little bit of focus. You don't necessarily have to talk about every single one. If your group really gets into a discussion about one or a couple of these things, and that's all you end up having time for, I'm fine with that. I'd much rather the conversations kind of go deeper and more meaningful than just kind of quickly skimming across the top of all of these. So what is ChatGPT and how does it work? I'm actually going to do just a quick little demonstration and kind of cover that piece now before we go into our breakout so that you can really dive right into the educational piece. So the next question, just kind of generic, how do you see ChatGPT impacting education? Sort of generically across a range of subjects, not just, well, in this type of class, it might do this and whatever, but what potential impacts do you see? And then I have a pair of prompts that kind of are looking at the negative side, meaning knowing that this thing exists and knowing how it could potentially be used. What are the problems that you could see could arise from people using this, particularly students, because we are talking education in the classroom. And along with that, like, how do you counter that? And that's maybe the biggest thing. We're in this class all going to be designing online, class lesson modules. How, if you know that GPT might be a problem, what can you do in your online lesson plan to try to counter any of those potential negative effects? So a little brainstorming there about some strategies, or what can you do to work to work against this. And then, not because it's not all bad, what are some potential benefits that you could see from ChatGPT? Are there ways that you could actually incorporate it into a classroom setting in a way that's positive, in a way that can enhance learning or engage learners in a different way? So pretty much just like any technology out there, it can be used in a positive way to move education forward, and it can also potentially be used in a negative way, um, in terms of, you know, cheating or things like that. So I want you to try to consider both sides of the coin, not just make this, doom and gloom about this new technology. It's not going to go away. Things like this are only going to get better and more prevalent. So let's be aware of the potential downfalls, have some strategies to address those, but then also on the other side, think about positive ways that this might actually help to enhance what you do in the classroom. So one person in each group. This is a wiki, so you would just go. The button's not here because I'm in a different mode, but it'll say edit wiki content. If one person in each group can become the editor, and then just type in. You can do it as like a bulleted list. It doesn't have to be full sentences or anything. Just, whichever questions you end up addressing, just take quick notes. If possible, if you can like tag the notes with the initials of the person who said it, just so that if I'm going back through these and trying to pull ideas out, I can sort of credit people who came up with certain things or know who developed certain ideas. If you can't do that, if that's too much, again, that's fine too. But just so I can kind of see how the conversation developed if I'm not actually there in the room with you. So that when we go to the breakout, that's basically going to be the task, is to go through and just use these guiding questions to move your conversation along and discuss what you know about this and so on. So before we divide up, let me go back to um, here. So I provided a couple of links and hopefully people had a chance to look at them, and maybe find resources of your own. So there was an article from CNET and another article from Brookings, more specifically about education. And I also gave you the link to ChatGPT so you can try it yourself. There is a paid version. Basically, right now, what they're finding is it takes such incredible computing power to make ChatGPT work that if you're using it for free, you very often will get some message that says, our servers are very busy right now, try again later. If you pay money to use ChatGPT, then it basically just means you always have access to it. You won't get that message. But they've calculated how much money it actually costs them for each response that ChatGPT produces. So right now, because it's a research sort of thing, they're not worried about the cost of it. Eventually, I could see them turning it more into a profit model. But in case you haven't had a chance to check it out, this is what it looks like once you've logged in. It's a free login. You can even use your Google account. That's there's a couple of ways you can log in with existing accounts. Google is one. So since you all have a Google account that you're using for your classroom project, you could use it. And it's really straightforward at the moment. At the bottom, there's just a box where you can type anything in. The idea behind this is that this is a natural language AI. So you can really ask it any question or present it with any material in any natural text format, and it will provide responses. It doesn't even have to be questions. Um, but you can do things like, and I haven't tried this specific question, so I'll be interested to see how it works. So, like, I'm a music teacher, so I could say something like, how do I make a diminished seventh chord? All right, so this is a pretty technical question related to music. I'm kind of curious as to what it's going to say. And I simply submit that, and it starts a chat. Let's see what it comes up with. I'm kind of scared. Oh, this is the longest it's ever taken to give me a response. It could. Okay, here we go. So I'll read this when it's done in case it's too small. Wow, this is very specific. Okay, so here's the answer it gave me. A diminished seventh chord can be constructed by stacking minor third intervals on top of each other. To form a diminished seventh chord, starting from the root note, play the root note, followed by a minor third, followed by a diminished fifth, and finally a diminished seventh. For example, the C diminished seventh chord would be constructed by playing C, E flat, G flat, B double flat. I can tell you as a music teacher, that answer is 100% accurate. And it actually, honestly, explains it in almost the exact same way that I explain it in my music theory classes. So this is not just Wikipedia. It generated this answer right then based off of my question. And basically, what's happening in the background, this is AI, this is artificial intelligence. They have trained this AI by allowing it to read millions of samples of writing, of human language, and it has trained itself to understand that language. It has trained itself to know how people speak and how sentences are formed. So this is not just accessing a database of answers and spitting those answers out. It is constructing this answer in real time as if it was a person on the other end. Um, so that's just an example of kind of how this can work. So I was looking for knowledge, but you can also give it writing examples and say, can you help me make this writing sample better? Or can you help me write a letter of recommendation? Or, things like that. And it will engage in a chat with you about that thing. So I could respond something back now and it would just start up a conversation with me about this topic, building the answers as it goes. So, in a nutshell, obviously there's tons of computer programming going on in the background and all of that, which is way over my head. But the fact of the matter is that for free now, anybody can go onto that platform and essentially ask it any question they can come up with, or ask it to do anything related to writing, and it will do it and give you a result back. So that's kind of what the chat GPT is all about. So what they did in those college exams is they just fed the questions to chat GPT, copied the answers it gave, put those into the exam, and then they submitted the exam. So they didn't edit it, they didn't make any adjustments, they just let the chat GPT take the test. And the answers that it gave back were good enough to get, a B passing grade on those graduate level exams. So all right, so that's just to kind of kick things off. Hopefully, you're not feeling like incredibly depressed right now, especially if you're in the language arts. You might be going, well, I'm out of a job now, but don't fret, don't panic. It's all good. So yeah, so what I'd like to do now is to divide up into breakouts and give each breakout room a chance to go through at least some of the questions if there's a particular area your group wants to really focus on. And then we will come back together and do a little debrief. Each group should be prepared to maybe uh, talk about or present one or two of the big ideas that maybe came out of your discussion. You don't have to go through and give an answer for every question, but maybe if there's a couple of things you particularly focused on, or if you think you came up with a couple of strategies that you think are really good ones, maybe bring those to the table as well, and we'll do a little group debrief when we're done. All right. So let me stop sharing that so that I can go into breakout room mode. Um, with the 12 of us, we'll go into three groups, so three groups of four. Um, Again, if one person in each group can help be the note taker for that group, just go into Blackboard and open up that wiki and hit the edit wiki content button for your group's page and just jot down notes. That would be very helpful. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess timing wise, let's see. I don't want to shortchange these, but I also don't want to keep us here forever. Does like 20-ish minutes sound like a good amount of time to at least get a couple of those questions addressed? And then, so that would bring us back kind of right before 6 o'clock or right around 6 o'clock. And then we can take maybe 15 minutes or so to debrief and get out of here, certainly by 6:30, but probably a little earlier than that. So let's do that. So breakout sessions. Whoops, here we go. So I'm going to make 3 breakout sessions, and I'm just going to let it assign the participants automatically. So one thing that would be helpful for me, I'll try to note it down too, but in the wiki, the first thing is just to put down the names of the people who ended up in that group, just so that I kind of know who was working together. And let's see, I think this will tell me the name of the rooms or who's going into the rooms. Yes, here we go. Okay, so here's how it's going to divide up. Breakout session 1 is Anna, Delaney, Kaylee, and Megan. Breakout 2 is going to be Alana, Stephanie, Stephen, and Tate. And then breakout 3 will be Carly, James, Claude, and Steph. All right. So those will be the 3 groups. So make sure you go to the correct page in the wiki. I am going to start the sessions, and I will kind of rotate through the rooms and kind of check in on how the conversations are going and so on. But feel free to just kind of lead the way and all get engaged. So we'll wrap things up right before 6 o'clock, and I'll send out a message that the breakout rooms are going to end. Sorry, not right before 6, more like 5:50, right? We said about 20 minutes. So around 5:50, I will end the breakout rooms, unless I see that all the rooms are like really engaged and really just going to town with this. So, all right. So good luck. Have fun discussing. I'll be interested to see what y'all come up with. And here we go.